Welcome back to CVM Live. It's now time for the major stories in detail. Montego Bay's mayor has given his opinion of the public state of emergency that was announced on Thursday, as he repeats his insistence that criminal elements should turn themselves over to the security forces. CVM Live's Joel Crosskill reports.
24 hours after the Prime Minister's announcement of a state of public emergency in St. James, and Mayor of Montego Bay, Homer Davies, has expressed optimism at the potential results.
I think the right action was taken, and I'm expecting that at the end of this period of state of emergency, we will see a marked reduction in criminal activities, and we will also see an apprehension of persons of interest, persons who are wanted by the police, and also the recovery of illegal firearms that there's no doubt that has littered the parish of St. James.
The mayor used the opportunity to appeal to the criminal element which plagues the tourism capital to turn themselves in to the security forces.
I am appealing to those persons who are out there, who knows that the police have an interest in them, to hand over themselves to the police and to probably make life a bit easier for them. And I would also encourage them not to engage the security forces, because I'm not sure, with the might of the security forces that is out there, I'm not sure that you'll be successful.
Mr. Davis also highlighted something that the Prime Minister said regarding the observation of human rights throughout the state of emergency.
That human rights must be observed. There isn't a suspension of human rights, but we must treat our people with a level of dignity and respect. But at the same time, the security forces must be relentless in their effort to track down, apprehend, seize all the violence producers, all those persons who are making our lives uncomfortable.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
Meanwhile, the private sector organization of Jamaica, the PSOJ, has registered its support for the state of emergency in St. James. The PSOJ had earlier this month expressed significant concern that the crime situation was out of control, as was evidenced by the brazen murders that were taking place across the island, but particularly in the region of the tourist capital, Montego Bay. The PSOJ is calling on the government to ensure that the action goes beyond the state of emergency and urgently addresses wanton indiscipline on the roads, zoning violations, and violations of the Noise Abatement Act. The PSOJ is also highlighting other issues, such as the reform of the JCF and its relationship with Indicom, an examination of how bail and penalties are administered for those involved in gun crimes, the weaknesses of the justice system, and the controlled sharing of information to assist the police in the fight against criminal kingpins. 2 men were hospitalized in critical condition following a shooting incident early this morning. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas was on Belmont Road, New Kingston, where the incident took place.
Gunshots rang out minutes to 11 this morning in the busy New Kingston area when a man walked onto this complex and shot 2 male occupants of the Toyota motor vehicle that had just driven onto this compound. According to police reports, the man had trailed the men onto the business complex, and shortly after they had parked, he approached the driver's side of the vehicle and opened fire directly through the window, hitting both occupants. The police were quick on the scene and transported both men to the hospital. The incident led to a major traffic pileup in the area, attracting curious onlookers. The area was soon thereafter cordoned off by the police as the crime scene was being processed by forensic investigators. When CVM Live contacted the Corporate Communications Unit regarding the incident, we were advised that the only information that can be confirmed is that the 2 men were shot and are in serious condition in hospital. No other information was made available up to news time. The police continue to investigate the tragic incident, trying to identify the suspect who was captured on camera. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
And on the heels of the state of emergency in St. James, 41-year-old Fitzroy Pearson, a phone technician and liaison officer for the Peace Management Initiative of Whitechurch Street, St. Catherine, was shot and killed by unknown assailants on Monk Street in the parish on Thursday. Reports from the Spanish Town Police are that about 9:20 p.m., residents in the area better known as Rivoli heard explosions and summoned them. On arrival of the police, Pearson was seen with multiple gunshot wounds. There have been at least 3 murders in and around the town this week. And a curfew is in effect in sections of Spanish Town since last evening. It will remain in effect until 6 p.m. tomorrow. The boundaries are north along Twickenham Main Road from the Rio Cobre to Jones Avenue, south along an imaginary line about 400 meters from Jones Avenue to the Rio Cobre, east along Jones Avenue from Twickenham Main Road, and west along the Rio Cobre to the Twickenham Main Road. Worries in Whitfield Town over murders that occurred in the community. An intervention team was assembled to address some of the concerns of residents as police and political representatives seek to reinstate peace. CVM Live's Joel Kroskill reports.
Following a flare-up in Whitfield Town, an intervention was staged by members of the Community Safety and Security Branch, as well as MP for St. Andrews Southwest, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke.
I'm here with the councillor for the Whitfield Town Division, going through that Pretoria Glen Road area and so on, along with the police and the members of the community. You know, it's a community that has been troubled by a number of criminal activities, and we are concerned. We know that the residents here are also concerned about it. It is a situation that has flared up, gone down, flared up, and so on.
Sergeant Alexander Bloomfield, who is attached to the Community Safety and Security Branch in St. Andrews South, explained the procedure behind the intervention.
We're mandated to do activities like these when we have observed of violence within communities. At the present, we are in the Pretoria Road area where there's a shooting murder incident, and we are trying to be proactive to ensure that we come in and speak to the citizens to see how best we can rationalize this type of behavior and to implement plans going forward for 2018.
Dr. Brown-Burke highlighted some of the deficiencies in the community which may be contributing to the uptick in violence.
The lights in this area is a problem, yeah. Along the stretch, they will have little or no street lights, and that's a problem. So that is something we're going to have to take up as well with the Parish Council and JPS. We know that they started not so long ago the replacement of some of the bulbs, putting in the LED bulbs, but right here there is a problem.
It's not yet known whether the flare-up is as a result of gang activities.
I wouldn't say it's a gang war, because if you listen earlier, you see that persons are saying that most of the shootings that take place within these communities, persons are not a part of these communities. So we are concerned, so we are not able to say whether or not it is a gang violence. But of course, we have our CIB department who will investigate to see what is happening, and then we're able to provide that information.
Joel Kroskill, CVM Live.
And in a CVM update, after being impassable for almost 2 weeks, Mattyhole, Portland has been reopened to vehicular traffic. Member of Parliament for West Portland, Darrell Vaz, says that temporary restorations continue.
Temporary repairs continue in terms of shingling the road to make sure that it is drivable, and the water has now almost 100% completely receded based on the trenches that were dug to drain the 15 feet of water. We'll continue to work through the weekend, and hopefully full normality will be restored by Monday.
This includes a bypass road which has been cleaned out completely to facilitate traffic in the event there is a recurrence of flooding of this nature. There are growing fears in the Balaclava community in St. Elizabeth as thieves are apparently on the prowl, with a marked increase in break-ins. CVM's Khadija Thomas has that developing story.
Thieves are said to be wreaking havoc in Balaclava, St. Elizabeth, triggering panic and unease among citizens and the business community. They only recently broke into this supermarket, relieving it of liquor, cigarettes, phone cards and cash. They even attempted to break into this Western Union, but were unsuccessful. Owner of the supermarket, Jerome May, says he was alerted to the break-in at his business by a phone call.
He told me that the grill was totally removed and the door was, the glass was taken out of the door. everything was totally removed.
That is the same door that these workmen are welding. May adds that thieves have been breaking into businesses every week.
But the most alarming part of it is the fact that the police station is like a stone throw away. I can actually stay at my store and look at the police station, and you can't believe somebody could feel so comfortable to remove a grill, remove the glass, and to be inside doing, all that activity and feel comfortable doing it.
The Western Union is located in the Hillcrest hardware that Delroy Garden works. He says it is the second time thieves have tried to break into the money transfer location, but the police need to be more active in preventing the break-ins.
Well, for the police, them lock up the place at 10, 9 o'clock. And like say, no, they never have a radar car, no, they have a radar car. Then patrol the area good, and we don't want to see them patrol the area the right and proper way. You can wait there for Santa Cruz and my goal if you patrol the town. You want some serious police in the area.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
It's now time for regional and international news with Nicole Wilson.
Thanks, Richard. Now for news in the region. In Haiti, Haitians, angry over recent words and actions by U.S. President Donald Trump, staged a protest outside the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince. Demonstrators gathered outside the gates of the embassy complex on Thursday, chanting slogans and waving signs denouncing Trump over reported remarks about Haiti and a move to end a program that gave temporary legal status to thousands of Haitians in the U.S. The demonstration was peaceful and ended without incident. Another demonstration is planned for next week. And in St. Lucia is ready to talk with European Union officials in a bid to get the country off the EU's tax haven blacklist. HTS St. Lucia has more in this report.
St. Lucia wants to get off the European Union's blacklist of tax havens. Government Senior Communications Advisor Nicole McDonald says the bloc informed the Alan Chasney administration about the blacklisting and why St. Lucia was on the list. She says the government has written to the EU stating that officials are ready to dialogue and are committed to tax transparency.
As you heard the Prime Minister announce last evening, there is going to be a conference call and, of course, ongoing dialogue with the EU on this issue. So we do anticipate that St. Lucia will commit to taking the necessary steps to also be removed from this list.
The EU will remove 8 countries, including Barbados and Grenada, from its blacklist and put them on the so-called grey list. Those nations have pledged to improve their tax policies. McDonald says the government of St. Lucia is aiming for a similar move.
Once you commit, they basically make a decision to remove you from the blacklist and you go on to a grey list, which is countries who have made a commitment to comply.
And in the United States, the bid by the Republican-controlled Senate to avert a U.S. government shutdown is teetering on the brink of collapse as it races against the midnight deadline. The House of Representatives voted 230 to 197 on Thursday night for a budget bill to extend funding until next month. But the upper chamber is set for a nail-biting vote, with Republicans and Democrats still split on immigration. President Donald Trump has called off a trip to his Florida golf club this weekend until a deal can be struck. This would be the 4th short-term budget measure to squeeze through a gridlocked Congress since the fiscal year began in October. That's it for regional and international news. I am Nicole Wilson. Back to you, Richard.
And we conclude our probe series this evening with Nika Lewis, looking at the Palisadoes traffic pileup and the international implications in Palisadoes points of failure.
Jamaican-born Democratic Councilwoman in Highland, New Jersey, Elsie Foster Dublin, is the longest-serving council member with 18 years in that state, whose portfolio of public safety covers police, search team, first aid, municipal courts, fire and emergency management. We sought her views on the Palisadoes pileup.
It raises really some alarming red flags. You know, it's who's at the helm, who's in control, who's giving direction. Is it just everyone does whatever they wish at any time? You know, so it's really raising some major red flags, and it gives us the diaspora great pause when we see situations such as this that continue to happen from the lawlessness of closing down a major interstate so people could go back and forth. And then compiled with the crime and violence that is very pervasive in the island.
She questioned who issued the permit while outlining the need for an overflow area for such large events.
We know we have X amount of parking spaces available. At some point we communicate with someone, our parking lot is filled, it's closed, go to the overflow area.
So an overflow area is something that's also considered for these major events?
Absolutely, because if you have no more parking spaces, and based on people that are still coming to the event, you have to have another area where they need to go so they would not block traffic.
Okay.
Because not everyone is interested in that event that you're having. Other people have other business that must be taken care of.
And while she said Jamaica's image has been tainted, she insists someone must be held accountable for such a blunder, allowing the party in the island's gateway. She, however, believes there is no need to dwell on the mistakes.
It's not a time to play the blame game. Because this person is blaming this person is blaming this person, and it goes on and on and on and on. How are we going to resolve this to make sure it doesn't happen the next time? And if you're going to hold somebody accountable, hold that person accountable, but keep moving on with the business of the country, because there's some really serious issues that need to be dealt with, rather than spending countless weeks blaming each other, and then there are other parts of the country with crime and violence that needs to be addressed.
We were promised a response from the Transport Ministry by the Airport Authority of Jamaica, but have received no further updates. We also sought responses from the Jamaica Tourist Board, but that was also not forthcoming. The gridlock will affect Jamaica's image and economy, but investigations continue into who failed and exactly how the nation will prevent a repeat. For CVM Probes, I'm Nika Lewis.
Well, those were the stories and major stories this evening. So we have more news later in the program. Of course, News Live in 5 with Joel Croskett. But straight ahead, we have our panel discussion. Day 2 of the state of emergency in St. James. We look at the provisions under the law and the potential efficacy.
This is News Live in 5, our main story recap and more. Good evening, I'm Joel Croskill. Montego Bay's mayor has given his opinion of the public state of emergency that was announced on Thursday, as he repeats his insistence that criminal elements should turn themselves over to the security forces. 24 hours after the Prime Minister's announcement of a state of public emergency in St. James, and Mayor of Montego Bay Homer Davies expressed optimism at the potential results. A joint police-military team seized approximately 5,000 litres of petrol, resulting in the arrest of 7 men in Montego Bay, St. James today. Reports are that about 2 p.m. during a special operation at various locations along Bay Road and Pimento Way in the area, several men were observed conducting the illegal trade of petrol from makeshift gas pumps. They were accosted, and 50 barrels containing petrol were seized, as well as $200,000, believed to be the proceeds from the sales. Also, motor vehicles were removed from the locations, as the ownership of each could not be ascertained. The street value of the petrol is approximately $750,000. The identities of the men are being withheld, pending charges for offences under the Petroleum Act. Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Council, Dr. Lucian Jones, is calling for a shift in how we handle matters relating to road safety in Jamaica. Jones was speaking at a Rotary Club of Kingston luncheon at the Pegasus Hotel on Thursday, where he called for the nation to adopt a safe systems approach to reduce deaths on our roadways.
The basic philosophy of the safe systems approach is that human beings make errors. They are fallible, but when they make an error, they should not be punished with death and injury on the road. So the basic premise of this safe system is that we should design roads, we should import safe vehicles, we should legislate for safe speeds, we should ensure that we have safe road users, And all of these things come together to make sure that death and injury on any road is unacceptable.
Jones says no one should die on the nation's roadways, but the safe system can only be successful if all stakeholders responsible for road safety work together.
Based on the UN Decade of Action for Road Safety, which mandates that all countries should do everything possible to reduce the number of people who are dying by 50%, by a half. The Prime Minister made a commitment that Jamaica would do everything possible to achieve this target. And the Decade of Action started in 2011, and it will end in 2020.
Jamaica will be the host of a two-day international workshop for women parliamentarians that will focus on gender issues and equality. This was announced recently by the Clerk of Houses of Parliament, Heather Cook, at the Jamaica Information Service think tank meeting. Cook says the workshop will focus on best practices to strengthen parliamentarians and sensitize individuals on gender issues. She adds that the meeting will focus on both genders so as not to marginalize men.
In consideration of gender, it's, men and women equally, but a big consideration on more vulnerable group, the children, the youth. So that is one of the focuses as well. When you're considering the whole issue of gender, you really have to be focusing on generation for tomorrow.
She says the aims of the meeting is to achieve equality and empower women and girls.
This is but one in a series of meetings. They've been conducting them throughout the countries of Pan America. So this one will take into account Canada and the Caribbean. And it's going to be held on the 24th and 25th of January. As far back as November 2016, the request was made to our speaker, this Honorable Pernell Childs, or the Speaker of the House, for Jamaica to host this meeting. We weren't able to do it for last year as they had wanted, but we are glad that now it is being realized.
And that's News Live in 5 Sports with Wayne Walker.